Welcome everyone to our monthly webinar series at the Women's Business Center at Jedi. I am Joy Taylor. I am your host, and I am here with Michael today. Hi, Michael.
Hi there.
And lots of people, lots of business owners. We're going to find out more about all of you as we get going in the webinar because we want to know what industry you're in and why you're here and what you're excited to learn. But it's all about numbers today. And we do have a special template as a gift for you. So in the email reminder, you may have noticed the link. If not, no prob, because it's right over here in the chat. So welcome to Zoom, where down below you'll see you have a little button called chat. If you click on that, it'll pop up and you will find a link that takes you to the templates. You don't need them during the webinar, but you will want them for after the webinar. And when I send out the recording tomorrow, you'll get the link again. But this was a special gift that Michael put together for everyone to help you do some budgets and cash flows and some other aspects of running your business and using numbers to make good decisions. Okay, well, I'm ready to do the official intro and run through the slides, Michael. So let's go for it.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to pull up our presentation here.
Business Finance 101. So this is a get started type overview. We're not going to get into a lot of details, but we're going to get a broad general understanding of how we can make better business decisions by using budgets, including cash flows, bookkeeping, and planning with taxes. So those are the core elements we'll be covering. I hope that's why you're here. Whether you are a thumbs up, really good at finances, or like, brand new in business and want to get better, this is the place for you. Michael has a way of teaching to all levels. I've found that to be true. Even some of the most advanced learn things from you along the way.
And I sometimes learn things from other people too that I'm like, never thought of that before.
Well, yes, and that's why we encourage you to be active in the webinar. So once again, there is a chat button. There's going to be some times where we prompt you to do a poll or to chat. So please feel free. You'll see on the chat all panelists and attendees ask questions, make comments, and we're really glad you're all here. So next slide. This is brought to you by the Women's Business Center at Jedi, which is a wonderful organization up here in Northern California, serving 4 counties and more. I know some of you are from even out of state, and you are welcome to these webinars that we do. We're lucky that we can support so many people in lots of business services, including training classes and workshops, both online and in person, private business consultations, tax prep, business planning, loan applications, and even some advanced business development support, such as hiring employees, scaling your business, things of that nature. All right, well, I think I get to introduce you and just encourage everyone before I do that. Once again, type questions in chat. We are going to be doing polls. You're probably going to want to take notes. And so buckle your seatbelt because we're in for 55 minutes of good information that will make a difference in your business. And our presenter is Michael Howe, who is a QuickBooks ProAdvisor. He has over 15 years of experience working with businesses in Shasta County. He holds a BS in accounting and an MBA, which is Masters of Business. Michael's held various managerial and executive positions in the greater Redding area. We're really blessed to have him as part of the Women's Business Center doing the private consulting work that he does, helping people set up their books and other things, but also as a trainer and a teacher. And here you are sharing your knowledge with this group of people. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you. So we'll get started. We're going to cover 4 main topics here today in this Business Finance 101 course. We're going to start with budgets. We'll go to cash flow projections, and both of those really are instrumental in the bookkeeping process. And then, of course, that all dovetails into tax planning. So we have a poll, right, Joy, to figure out what business or what industry rather everyone is in.
So I just launched the poll. Everyone on the call should see it. You have an opportunity to click What do you do? Are you a service professional, storefront, tourism, manufacturing, artist, food, restaurant, etc.? Some of you might click more than one. That's okay. And I want to give a little bit more time. It looks like about half of the people have responded, and then I will launch the poll. The polls are anonymous, but this will help as we go through the material. It'll help Michael give relevant types of examples. All right, going once, going twice. Oh, a few people are still chiming in. Super, we've got a vast majority, so I'm going to end the poll, and I will share results. So it looks like service professionals, coaches, consultants, practitioners came in the highest. Other, so those of you in other, go ahead and put in chat. What industry would you consider yourself in? Those of you who are willing to share would love to hear, so you could just chat your answer there. And a few people in food, a few people as artists, storefront, retail. Okay, well, great.
And I think those are, that's a great mix because the service professional, right, is generally not going to have your direct cost of goods sold, whereas the food professionals will. So we'll be able to touch on both of those. So financial management. What do we think of when we hear financial management? Think of a lot of things. Some people think of headaches. But financial management is the process of measuring, recording, documenting, and communicating the financial status of your business. And how does this help you? It gives you feedback about the decisions you have made, so you can at least, from a financial perspective, understand if those decisions were good for your business or bad for your business, so you can pivot for the future. It informs business direction, the next steps in planning, like I just talked about with the future. And it helps your business get through lean times or emergencies. One of the worst things would be to be strapped for cash, right? And have your business suffer because you didn't plan. So that is a big piece of the financial management. We have another poll, Joy.
All right, well, we have two. So this once again is anonymous, but just to get a sense of, the first one is, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you understand your business financials and use them to make business decisions? Which sounds most like your voice? This is great. We're getting lots of feedback, lots of people. All right. So I'll go ahead and share results. There you go, Michael. What do you see?
I can understand and use them more. I could understand and use them more. Seems to be the vast majority. And then it's the middle of the road. Okay.
All right. I've got one more poll that we wanted to share. And this has more to do with not so much understanding your financials and using them, but appreciating the value of working with financials. So on a, once again, a scale from 1 to 5, how much do you appreciate and value working with financials? Yeah,
very different than enjoy, right?
Or understand, yeah. But you make it enjoyable, I have to say. I really think that so many people are blessed that they do one-on-one work with you through the Women's Business Center too.
Well, thank you.
All right, we're almost there. We've got 19 people out of 23. Anyone else? Okay. Well, the good news is no one had a 1, which is financials have no apparent value.
That's good.
So there you go.
All right, great. So we have, a lot of people who find it extremely valuable, and then a lot of people who would like to work more with their business financials. So that's great. We're going to cover a lot of those topics here and hopefully provide some insights that everybody can use. So the budgeting process will help you achieve exactly what you want by documenting how much you want to earn and spend. This is one of the main things that I do just in my profession for different businesses is I create their budgets. We have to, on the one hand, look forward so we can plan. And then as we're going through the year, we need something to compare ourselves against to see how we're doing. And the budget is the greatest tool for that. And cash flow projections, they will help you control and manage the flow of money in and out of your business. And then bookkeeping, of course, will help you record, summarize, and analyze your business's financial activity. And proper bookkeeping, I can't reiterate enough how much easier it makes the budgeting and cash flow projection process if you have good bookkeeping processes. And then prepping for taxes will help you document and analyze the information contained in your bookkeeping system in order to estimate and file tax returns, because that is one of the important reasons why we do this, right, is to figure out our tax burden at the end of the year. We want to make sure to capture all the deductions that we legally can. So, budgets. Budgets are a few things. A budget is an estimate of expenses. It's also a estimate of income. And the important thing to remember is that budgets have the ability to change. If I project that I'll make $100,000 next year, great. But then in February, I have a new client that's going to double that. So they can change. You just pivot and move as your year changes and goes along. But it's really important to have that budget up front so you have an idea of what your year will look like. The point is to use the budgets to help you get to where you want to be, which is, of course, managing money and making profits. That's why we're all doing what we're doing. And the budgets come in many types. You might not have a business yet, and you do a startup budget. You might have an existing business, but you want to expand out either into other divisions or just expand your business as is. And then, of course, there's project budgets. If we want to build a new building, something like that, we need a budget for that. Here is a little shot of an example spreadsheet. You can see the items here, right? And just kind of the format of this. We have the items on the left, and it's really important, when you sit down and do this, really try to consider all the expenses, not just the easy things that we know we have to pay, like rent, utilities, stuff like that, but, have you contacted insurance companies? Are you going to have to carry general liability insurance? How's that paid out, right? All the kind of questions that you want to ask when you're looking at your budget. Likewise, we want to look at the revenue piece, as I mentioned before. How much money are we going to be bringing in? So as it relates to costs, we need to consider what it costs to operate the business, and obviously, so that we can continue making money, hopefully profitable. So there are two different types of costs. One of the costs are called variable costs. So you're going to have these, those of you who said that you're in the food industry, this is your cost of goods sold. This is your product, the cost of the product that you give to your clients that are directly related to the revenue. And those costs, as people in the food industry know, can vary quite wildly. Then after that, you have your fixed or operational costs related to overhead expenses. So these are going to be your rent, your utilities, your insurance payments, your telephone, things like that don't really change that much, but are consistent expenses that you have throughout the year. So when we look at those variable costs, a really good example is the flower industry, the florist industry. The florist industry has two really important holidays. They have Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, and that is where they do the bulk of their business for the year. So likewise, they're making all the revenue in those months. Likewise, they're going to have some pretty substantial expenses in those months because of all the product inventory that they had to purchase in order to service the orders. So variable costs go up and down in relation to the amounts that you sell and then the time periods in which you sell those products. These costs include the cost of materials, the cost of any labor used to make the products, any sort of sales commissions that have to be paid out in relation to the sale of the products, as well as shipping, packaging, delivery charges. I've even seen a lot of people use the merchant fees. You know, when you have when you accept credit cards, right, you get charged for that. And a lot of times businesses will treat that as a variable cost or cost of goods sold. Now, fixed costs, as I mentioned, they're the costs of just actually being in business, right? Your brick and mortar buildings, your electricity, your insurance, other admin expenses. If you have administrative employees, you know, you have to pay them. But generally, they don't bring in much money, if any. So then, of course, there's loan payments and then technology. A lot of businesses, especially at this day and age, you know, we need a pretty technologically sound infrastructure of computers, phone systems to be able to service clients. So the vast majority of people in the poll said that they were service professionals. So we're going to talk about some of the things that would affect those sort of businesses. It's really important to keep in mind that as you are servicing your clients, you are logging billable hours, and then you invoice your clients for those hours and you get paid. But who do you get to invoice for the 2 hours that you had to spend doing bookkeeping on Saturday? You don't get to invoice anybody for that. It's just what you have to do to run your business. So some hours are needed for your business operations, such as promotional activities, admin, research, scheduling, the bookkeeping. Will you have enough billable hours to make the money you want or need? It's really important to take into consideration when you consider how much time not only that it takes you to service your clients, but then you have to factor into that how much time it takes you on the back end just to run your business. Joy, can we pause for questions here before we get into cash flow?
Sure. If anyone has a question, you can type it, or any comments, like the difference between, if you have a question about, ooh, is this a variable cost or a fixed cost? And that was great descriptions, and I know how helpful it is for now getting into cash flows to differentiate our fixed and variables. So I do have a comment. Thanks, Michael. You're awesome. I appreciate you a lot.
Thank you.
All right, no question. So let's play cash flow. This is one of my very favorite budgeting templates.
Okay. So a cash flow projection basically documents 4 things. 1, the cash in. Where is the cash coming from? Is it going to be from sales or investments, royalties, commissions, things like that? So important in your business. You need to be able to have some sort of general idea about the amount of money that you're going to bring in and when you're going to bring it in. So that way you can apply that to the bills that you know are going to be due during those time periods. And then we get to cash out, the bills, right? Where is your cash going? Variable costs, operating costs, rent, taxes, utilities, and then of course the when. If we know that we have a workers' comp insurance premium due and we have to pay it all up front and it's $10,000 in January, we want to make sure that we're doing our cash flow properly to account for that. We can save throughout the year. That way we can afford that bill when it comes due. And then of course, the last piece, after all my income is made and all my expenses are paid, how much money is left over for me? Profits. Now, a couple of good examples here of why a cash flow, or how a cash flow could be so powerful and why it is so important. Imagine a ski lodge. They are not going to turn any, much revenue, if any, during the warm months when there's no snow, but you can be guaranteed they're still going to have bills during those months, right? They still have to keep the lights on. There's still maintenance people working, but they're not taking in any money. So they need to make sure to do their cash flow properly so that they have the cash left over after their season where they're making money to satisfy all the expenses that they know are upcoming in the season where they're not making any money. Likewise, a nursery or florist shop, I believe I saw the name of one individual who's in that industry in our list here today. And, there are just certain months, right, where your inventory is going to be low because it's not the season. So again, the cash flow is instrumental for both of these businesses, and even just a business that operates year round. So nothing is more valuable than knowing, or at least having a good idea of what's going to come in and go out. So I'm going to pull up an example of our cash flow here. And everyone should be seeing an Excel file called Cash Flow Sales Forecast. And what I've done here is I've created just like a general, like a baking company here to show how we have some direct expenses. So you can see we've got beginnings cash up here. This is what we started with, right? The owner's initial investment. And then we see down here, we've got all these startup expenses that are coming through. That's the thing, right? You might have a bunch of startup expenses before you even open your doors and start making sales. It's really important to be able to project those out. Likewise, you're going to have your rent, your utilities, your things like that in the ramp up to your business opening. And then you can see we've projected out our sales here. So we can see sales increasing throughout the year. That would be everybody's hope, I'm assuming. And then we see how the expenses are all lined out here, right? We have the baking supplies in direct relation to the income amount, because if we work in the food industry, right, we are gonna, as we make more money, that means more expense. The only way we make more money is if we sell more product, which costs money, right?
So Michael, earlier you used the terms fixed and operational. So direct and indirect are replacement words that mean the same thing.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Joy. The direct expenses, or also known as variable expenses, also known as cost of goods sold, they're all the same thing. It's the money that you have to expend to create your product. That's I think the easiest way I can say it. And then down here in our overhead expenses or fixed expenses or indirect expenses, again, so it's a lot of words, it all means the same thing. It's the expenses that don't change much, and more importantly, the expenses that are related to just running your business as a business. Not necessarily related to your products, but your business. Like here we've got the utilities, and we've got our rent, we can see our office expenses. And then as I mentioned on our insurance policies, right? Your insurance policy might be due upfront, or you might have one that they let you pay it off incrementally. I've also seen them where you have to do a balloon payment in the beginning and then you pay it off slowly throughout the year. Either way, it's going to be really important to understand what money is due when, so that way you can line it out properly. Down here at the bottom, like we talked about, we have the most important piece. What kind of cash are we going to have left over at the end? And the other piece here is loan payments. Only the interest payment shows up on your profit and loss report, which we'll cover later. So that's something really important. If you're gonna apply for a loan, especially if you already have existing loans, the lender is gonna wanna see this cash flow, and they're gonna wanna see your actual loan payments, and to make sure that you're gonna be able to satisfy and pay them back.
So Michael, I notice in this one, there is no owner's draw. So this individual who owns this business is not making money for themselves yet, and likely putting hours and hours into this business. But the business itself is ending with $12,000 at the end of the year.
Right.
So, and this kind of brings up a couple questions came up.
Okay.
Marie asked, can you tell me if figuring my time is needed? I haven't figured in my time. I think she's referring to billable hours and
Yeah. So when we think about that, right, we should have a general idea of what we're charging our clients for billable hours, right? But then you do have to consider all that back office work, right? And while you're not going to get paid directly for your bookkeeping by the client, you still want to put that into your price, right? So if you say, well, I'm going to charge $50 an hour to my client, but I have to spend a few hours a week bookkeeping. I don't really get paid for that, but I'd like to. Well, then maybe you charge your clients $55 an hour instead, right? It all breaks down to what you value your time at. And that's, I think, the most important thing, how much time are you spending? And really, is it worth it to you for the money that you're making? And that's an individual thing, that's going to change person to person. But definitely consider all the time that you have to put into running your business when you're setting your pricing.
Yeah, and that might take time to explore and because there are definitely a lot of consultants and et cetera out there that charge anywhere from $50 to $250 an hour and maybe only have 20 hours a week that they're actually working with clients. And the other 20 hours a week are promotion, admin, scheduling, bookkeeping, all those things we talked about. Plus they pay for an office. They pay for their technology. So it sounds like a lot to make $100 in an hour, but if you really were to do the calculations, which you could do with Michael one-on-one and play with this a little bit further, by recording things over time, it might become apparent that you or this consultant who's charging 100 an hour is making $40 an hour or less. When you look at the amount of time that's put into the business, it sheds a lot of light on why things are expensive. That's for sure. Michael, Peggy has a question. She has her hand raised. So Peggy, what I'd like you to do is chat your question in the chat box, which is anyone who has a question down below. There's a ribbon, click on chat, and you can type in your question. Thank you for that. And it looks like Carolyn also has a question. So once again, if you guys can chat in your questions, that'll be helpful. All right, perfect. Are loan payments tax deductible? That's a tax question. We're jumping ahead, but if you want to answer it, Michael.
The interest portion is tax deductible.
Okay, great.
And that's all that would show up on the profit and loss, which we'll cover in just a little while. I am going to switch back over to our presentation here. And as Joy mentioned too, everybody has that attachment of the cash flow. I've got two tabs on there, one for service industry and one for one for service industry and one for product industry. And again, like Joy said, any questions, reach out to Jedi and we'll get you all set up.
This is just to mention there is a much more in-depth 1 hour presentation by Susan Brown going through cash flow projections further. If you want to watch that, it could be really helpful. And then you can use the template or set up a time to work with a counselor at the Women's Business Center at Jedi.
Okay, staying organized. It is so important. I mentioned earlier when we were looking at the high-level overview of this class that proper bookkeeping is instrumental in making the budgeting and cash flow process, something you can stomach, right? And something that's easy to do with difficult bookkeeping practices, and it's going to be really hard to figure out what money's coming out when, what money's coming in when. So record keeping and bookkeeping helps you track the financial and legal health of your business, as well as perform tasks for tax reporting. So we're going to take a look at record keeping. What is record keeping? Record keeping is you want to hang on to the invoices, hang on to the receipts, cash register tapes, banking records, contracts, paper and digital files. It's really important. And then also backups are very, very important, because if you have a lot of stuff digitally on a computer, it could die, right? The computer could go out, and then where's all your documentation? So very important to back up. I've felt like this many times in my career, especially early on. This is how a lot of my bookkeepers feel as well. So Bookkeeping is a system by which you record, summarize, and analyze your business's financial activity. You can see down there we have a little shot of QuickBooks. Joy mentioned I'm a QuickBooks ProAdvisor. It's one of the easiest programs to use that I found specifically for non-accounting people. It just kind of makes everything a little easier and has a more seamless interface. Bookkeeping best practices. So we always want to separate our personal and business expenses. I highly recommend if you have a business, you should have a business bank account, and only business expenses should go through there. Don't go buy your groceries on that, unless you're in the food industry and you're selling them. So we'll talk about business expenses here. What in this picture is a business expense?
So let's chat about that.
The easy one's the computer, right?
It sounds easy, but what if I use my computer for my personal and my business? So one person said the phone, kind of similar. What if I use my phone for personal and business?
And what the rule is that it's percentage based. So if you use your so let's say that your telephone costs $200 a month, and 50% of the time you are using that phone for business, then $100 of that should go as your business expense and be deductible.
All right, someone said everywhere, everything. Not getting a ton of chat. Let's talk about the desk.
I like this. Everything, because this person's job is making stock art. Now, that is really great, that comment, because that would be true, right? If I take pictures and I make stock art for a living and I sell my stock art to Getty Images or, whatever, Microsoft, then everything in my picture would be a business write-off, right? Because I use this to make my product that I sell. That is a really good comment. That's something I wouldn't have thought of.
Michael, did you want to make any other comments? So if it's a home office or if it's the furniture, the desk, for example, is in a dedicated only for business office.
Yeah, and then the rule with that is it's the percentage of I don't know really how to say it, but it's so if your home is 1,000 square feet and your office is 100 square feet, that's 10%, right? So then you can write off 10% of your home expenses that would be related to your business. Again, not your groceries, not your clothes. We don't get to do that, but the utilities, the mortgage, stuff like that.
House cleaning.
House cleaning, yeah. Okay, so why should we keep our books current? I have a lot of clients who maybe do it like every 6 months. I am a firm believer that you want to have a bookkeeping process at the very smallest time or the very widest time increment of 1 month. At the very least, you want to be doing your bookkeeping monthly, no matter how much you don't like it. So why do we keep our books current? So that we can run reports and see the health of our business. How did we do in September? I don't know if I didn't do the bookkeeping. I have nothing to look at. It helps keep track of everything in one place, and it really empowers the business owner to make proper decisions that will benefit the business. And lastly, of course, it is so much easier when you do your taxes to be able to have a one-page profit and loss rather than stacks and stacks and stacks of receipts and stuff like that. That's just no fun. Nobody wants to go through that. So a couple of the things that will really help us with our bookkeeping process are systems and software. I build profit and loss reports for people in Excel. It's not the most ideal, but it works, and it's far cheaper than something like QuickBooks. QuickBooks is a great program. There's other programs out there called Xero. There's all kinds of them out there. And they make the process a little bit easier. They have friendly interfaces that make it so you can just, enter your bills in a way that sort of makes sense to you rather than doing high-level accounting with debits and credits. I just am a firm believer that you have to find what works for you. If someone just is very adverse to using QuickBooks and they don't like it, don't do it. Find what works for you. Google Sheets, Excel, something like that might be better. And Jedi can help set all that up too. Okay, so we are going to talk about, or we have been talking about expenses, and I know it can be a little bit daunting to think about all the expenses and really how you want to track them, and that's the most important part. There are not really a lot of government rules surrounding what we have to call our accounts. Some people think of a cell phone as a cell phone, other people think of it as a utility. It's important to name your accounts the things that are going to trigger in your mind. So as an example, you see a thing of groceries here. Let's say that these groceries cost $100. I could go and tell you I bought $100 worth of groceries. Or I can tell you that I bought $50 worth of vegetables, $25 worth of proteins, and $25 worth of sugar. Or I could tell you I bought $50 worth of green and $25 of purple and all that. It doesn't matter, right? However you want to break it down, it just makes it really helpful if it triggers in your mind when you see it. If you don't think of a cell phone as a utility, don't put it in the utilities expense, right? Save that for electricity or whatever you think of as utilities. And this is all about the chart of accounts. That's what it's called when we do bookkeeping. And that's where we decide what we're going to call our accounts. So the things that are in our chart of accounts, we've got the bank account, we've got our income accounts. Just further on this, I'm a consultant, so I have consulting income, I have teaching income, I have training income, but I could just call all of these income and just have one line on my cash flow spreadsheet with just income, right? But it's important to me to track these differently because I charge different amounts based on each thing I do. So at the end of the year, I want to look back and say, what did I make the most money doing? If it's all in one income account, who knows? That's why I create the separation. Same thing with your cost of goods sold and expense accounts. We could just say expenses were $10,000. Okay, but what does that mean? Where did those dollars actually go? What's the breakdown? And that's where bookkeeping really helps. It helps you take lump sums that you know occurred and break it down and say, okay, well, what portion of that was utilities? What portion of it was rent? What portion of it was cost of goods sold? The other really important information that a bookkeeping system will help you track is your client and vendor information. Who is your top paying client? What vendor do you pay the most? And because you pay them that much money, do you think you have the best pricing? One of the most beneficial things that I do for people is to set this up and look at it. And then you look at how much you're paying your vendors and you go, geez, I paid this guy $15,000. I should get some deals out of that, right? We don't know unless we set this up properly to do the proper bookkeeping so that we can track this stuff so that we can understand it on that granular basis that we're trying to. When we do proper bookkeeping, we get to run reports. In a bookkeeping system, it's come standard, so it makes it a little bit easier. But even with Excel, we can run reports. The types of reports that you're going to get out of a more comprehensive bookkeeping system are your marketing costs, labor and contractor costs, your vendor and client reports, like I mentioned, your balance sheet, which tells you how much cash you have at a certain point in time, very important, what sales taxes are due, and then, of course, the mother of all reports, the profit and loss report. Speaking of the profit and loss, here is an example what this looks like. And you can see up here, I hope everybody can see my mouse. We have our income up here. This is a landscaping company. So we have design services at $13,510. Notice the time period at the top too. We're looking at October through September. And then you can see the direct costs down there. We've got job materials, direct cost. We've got labor at a direct cost. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at this totally wrong. So our total income there is the $65,000, but see how it's broken down. We have our labor income, we have our job materials income, we have our services income, and then down further we have our direct costs, our cost of goods sold, and then we have all of those overhead expenses, the automobile expenses, insurance expenses, professional fees, repairs, utilities. Ultimately, this is a huge subtraction problem. We take our income and we subtract our expenses, and then that leads us to this little number down here where this arrow is pointing to, our net income. And that's what's left over after all the expenses have gone out and all the income has been brought in. And that really explains the performance of our business for the period in time that we're looking at. Do we want to stop right here, Joy, before we get into taxes, see if anybody has any questions? I know that that section we just covered is it's a little dense.
Well, I have a question that relates right into taxes that came in. So back to that slide earlier, what if you're using your home office for nonprofit activities as well? It does help to separate taxable and non-taxable goods.
Yes. Absolutely. Are you talking about in the sales process, like sales tax, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the questioner there wants to add to that question, that might be helpful. And then here's a question from someone else. I do my taxes with TurboTax Online. They offer free QuickBooks. Do you recommend using that or purchasing my own QuickBooks program or something like that?
The QuickBooks version offered with when you do your TurboTax is the QuickBooks Self-Employed. It works, but it doesn't offer you the granular look, right? So it's an interface that lets you go, oh, that's a business expense. That's a business expense, but it doesn't offer you the ability to break it down. So I always recommend purchasing the QuickBooks. QuickBooks Online works great for a lot of people. And it's not that much. It's about $20 a month. And then you got your QuickBooks Desktop, which is a little more comprehensive and a little bit more expensive. But the self-employed definitely does work.
All right, and a big thank you. I think we're good. We've only got about 10 more minutes, so let's do an overview of tax planning. Oh, real quick, here's from Nancy. Yes, I was referring to goods used in the business when talking about the groceries. As to the other, would you quantify the usage? As to the other, would you quantify the usage? Yeah.
And I use groceries as not necessarily as a business expense, but just as an example to try to kind of demystify the concept of the chart of accounts and what to call things. But as the other, would you quantify the usage?
Using home office, I think.
And now I am not a tax professional, but my understanding is that it's percentage based. I mean, it's just like your vehicle, so if you use your vehicle 50% of the time, you can, write off 50% of the expense. If your home office is 10% of the square footage of your home, then you can write off 10% of the expenses. Again, not all home expenses, right? It's just the expenses related to that business office.
I think that's a good quote. I think you're explaining it well. And just having done this so many years myself, when I purchase equipment for my office, that is for my office, it's for my business. So the lamp, the light bulbs, the office supplies, the desk, things that are in my home office are for my business. And so of course I write off 100% of that.
Yeah, and more to the bookkeeping talk too, right? That's another reason why it's so important to have your business and personal account separate, so you don't have to go through all that to try to figure out, oh wait, what was this? What was this? It just kind of creates a clear separation. It helps in the event of an audit as well. Okay, so taxes, how to plan. As I think I said at the beginning, I can't reiterate enough to have proper bookkeeping practices. At the very, very least, I think everybody should be doing their bookkeeping once per month to get everything in. But if you have a high volume business and you're turning money every day, I mean, you might want to do it daily or weekly. Also save your receipts, make projections as we've been discussing with the budget and the cash flow, know your write-offs, and then stay current. Again, really important to keep up on that bookkeeping. You'd be surprised how hard it is to remember what happened 6 months ago when you're looking at a receipt. Some examples of tax write-offs. We have mileage. Mileage just went up. The reimbursable portion expenses, it went 54.5 cents to 58 cents this year. Business use of the home, as we've been discussing. Travel and entertainment. Now, I will disclose there are all kinds of IRS rules about what is a write-off, what isn't a write-off, what percentage when it comes to meals, travel, and entertainment. Consult your tax professional about that. Any sort of continuing education or professional development, any contractor expenses, or equipment you have to buy, as Joy mentioned, buying things for her home office. Promotional gifts up to $20, and then uniforms, right? But only if it's a required uniform, not the nice dress that you bought, you know. Health and fitness, if you're a corporation and it is in the bylaws. A couple of my clients do health wellness reimbursements for their employees. If they go to the gym 4 times or something in the month, they get $30. Perfectly legitimate tax write-off. So how we quantify this with the IRS is we fill out the Schedule C, the profit or loss from business. Now, that should sound familiar because we looked at the profit and loss earlier. What this document does is it really just summarizes all the data on that profit and loss that you have for your business. And you can see here the sort of expense items that they have. You got your advertising, car and truck expenses, commissions, contract labor, office expenses, items like that. Don't ever forget tax day is April 15th. Save your money for taxes. And you want to estimate your taxes, and if you're a small business owner, you're required to pay quarterly your tax deposits at the very least. A lot of people will do it monthly, and then you can annualize those when you do your taxes the following year. And then, of course, the filing options, you can do it yourself. The IRS makes it incredibly easy. They have this direct pay website. They barely ask you any questions. They're like, yep, give me the money. Cool. You can use a CPA, or JEDI offers the VITA program. I think we're wrapping up here, Joy.
I know. Let's go back a slide before we get into upcoming events. Just on that VITA program, that is for low income people who qualify, that can get assistance. And I'm sure there'll be lots of announcements about that coming up in February, March, and April. But this was a whirlwind of a lot of information. Really great overview. I do want to, just in our last little bit here, have people ask more questions. And Bev asked the question about the $20 gift. It's per person. So the promotional gifts, you can spend $20 per person on promotional gifts, and it's a legitimate write-off. So that's what that was referring to. Buying pens that have your company name on it, or t-shirts, that is a advertising cost. So that would be a little bit different. Great question. Thanks for asking for the clarification. Who else has a question or a comment? I see someone raising their hands. If you can chat down below. That's how we do the questions in the webinars. All right, well, while people are thinking of questions and comments, Michael, let's do a poll about how people are going to use this information. So Yep. How will you use the information that was covered today? And you can click on any and all of these that really pertain to you. We're getting some responses. Looks like we have a lot of do-it-yourself people here, which is pretty impressive. Someone is saying they're on their feet all day and she writes off her shoes. Any comments, Michael?
Very interesting. Yeah, I have seen all sorts of interesting perspectives on the items that are write-offs and not write-offs, and it's I'm very interested to know what you do.
Yeah, maybe you could talk. I know you mentioned a little bit like uniform. So when is it clear that we can write off clothing and things of that nature?
You know, I don't really know exactly, Joy, on that, but I mean, you know, if you have, I mean, this is sort of a stretch, but if you have to get a hazmat suit, right? Like a lot of the people doing the fire cleanup were, you know, business owners, and they had to purchase that because there are specific standards about how these cleanup efforts have to be handled. So in situations like that, I've also seen people write off their, what are they called? The medical scrubs.
Right. Okay, well, let's thank you for the comments. And here's another one. And Lisa is a hairdresser who's on her feet all day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Roseanne, hi everyone. I missed most of the meeting, internet problem. Is this video available? Yes, the good news is you're automatically gonna get sent the recording. So great question. And let's share the results on this last poll, how people are gonna use the information.
Wow. I love to see that 61% of people said they're gonna make a commitment to do their own bookkeeping regularly. It will make your life so much easier and will inform you so much. As you know, you'll have so much knowledge about your business financially.
Yeah, that's actually a great comment. And Michael, for someone who does hire a bookkeeper or has a bookkeeper, how often do you recommend either way that people actually look at their reports, and which reports would you say are the most popular reports to look at?
The profit and loss is by far the most popular. Now, if you have a bookkeeper who's doing this stuff for you, you also want to see the balance sheet. And you want to look at the reconciliations. It's a sort of trust but verify sort of situation there. But you know, the profit and loss is just absolutely the most important. That's the financial performance of your business. And then the other reports, like I said, are going to be your client and vendor reports. You know, who is paying you the most money, and hopefully you can quantify the profitability of that. And then on the vendor side, who are you paying the most money, and do you feel like you're getting the deal you should?
Great. Michael, here's a great question. I belong to the women in business. Can I write off dues and meals during meetings?
Now, I know the meals thing changed. I believe you can only write off 50% of meals unless you have employees and you're buying meals for them, then that's a full write-off. The dues belong to women in business. I think so, right? Because I mean, the dues allow you access to all the continuing education, right, Joy?
Yeah, any of those kind of professional associations, industries, networking groups, those would definitely be good write-offs, worthy write-offs. Great questions. Yeah, and the Jedi membership, you have the option of writing it off as an expense or as a donation to a nonprofit.
Write-offs.
Okay, super. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for being present, being here with us, and helping people make sense of their financial records and the importance of using them. And I was excited about people just deciding to get more organized.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lisa says, thank you. This was helpful. I'd love to share a little bit. Yeah, so thank you, Michael. I want to fully thank you before I talk about what's next at the Women's Business Center. Yeah. Upcoming events from the WBC. We are starting in October a digital empowerment project. There's more information on the website. If you want to build a new website and do some more digital promotion, this is definitely something you want to look at and consider being involved in. There is the monthly We Thrive meeting, and this month it's with Renee Gatrue, who's been with the Women's Business Center and Jedi for many, many, many years, like 20. And she's awesome. When it comes to creating goals, this woman knows what she's talking about, and she's helped a lot of people reach big financial goals. So if you want to like up the ante and get a little bit more risky and courageous about your goals, I would highly recommend that. And then we have our next webinars coming up on October 22nd, and it's how to successfully use Facebook Live. So that's also going to be a free webinar. Now I have just a couple other questions. I would love some feedback from all of you, especially because I'm creating our next webinars and I want to know which topics interest you. So this is an opportunity for us to get your feedback so we can plan accordingly the upcoming webinars at the Women's Business Center. So go ahead and click any of the topics that would interest you for the future. All right, we're getting a few. Oh, here we go. We're getting lots of yeses out here. And the winner so far, just because I'm seeing the answers, is anything to do with marketing. And then thank you for people who are in the chat. Time management, super. If there's something that isn't covered here that you would like, please, please, please write that down in the chat.
I could use help with time management too.
I love that topic. Managing yourself in time. We can't really manage time because it's, 24 hours in a day, but we can manage ourselves in time, and there are some ways to do that. So that sounds like a fun webinar. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll in a moment. So last call, I'll just give you a few seconds and you can all right, great. I'd like to see a training about grant writing. Okay, thank you. A training on grant writing. And just FYI, you are welcome to do a private consultation about it too. So definitely get a hold of the Women's Business Center. Promotion and advertising. Promotion and advertising. I got that comment too. Thank you, Becca. All right. Well, just for fun, I'll share the results. So it looks like managing overwhelm and anything to do with marketing got the highest rankings, but a lot of people are in for some of these other topics, and thank you. I appreciate knowing that. That's great. And then the last poll that I have is also just to help us serve you better. And that is, how did you hear about this webinar? And so that's pretty quick. But it helps us know how to continue to get the word out, how to do our outreach. So I'll give us a few moments for that. And it is the top of the hour, so we'll be closing out in a moment. Hey, Michael, did you think of anything you want to share in the last few minutes here before we close out?
No, that's about it. The only thing I can reiterate again is just stay consistent. Stay consistent with your bookkeeping, keep on it, and be sure to label those expenses things that make sense to you.
Helpful. Yeah, because you're the one who's going to be analyzing them.
Right. And every time you don't want to have to look at it and go, why are my utilities so expensive? Oh, because I put cell phone in there too, right?
Yeah. One thing I always get when you present and we, on these kind of programs is how we can really customize our bookkeeping so it makes sense for us and it works for us. So there's not always a right way to do something or a wrong way to do something. It's what's going to work for you in order, or me, in order to analyze my books properly within the realm of best practices of bookkeeping.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. It looks like a lot of you are hearing about our topics from our e-news, and that's fantastic. Social media, Women's Business Center website, friends, and an advisor. Great. What a super group. You guys have been very interactive. Loved that. Thank you for all your ideas, feedback, questions, and wishing you the very, very best. If there's anything we could do for you at the Women's Business Center at Jedi, please reach out. I think the next slide has the website and also a telephone number. And then thanks again to the Women's Business Center and Jedi, and to the Small Business Administration, who is one of our big funders that makes this all happen at inexpensive prices, definitely discounted, and in many cases free services to support entrepreneurs like you. So best wishes for the rest of the week, and thank you again, Michael, and we'll see you all soon.